Hey guys, welcome in. Today I'm going to be showing you my favorite build in Wynncraft, the Sunstar Shaman build. That's right. It all revolves around Sunstar, Absolution, and these shoes, Nether Scar. Before I begin, let me show you the damage. Underneath the totem, and with this beautiful mask on, and you cast Uproot for the Blood Sorrow, and then you hit the heck out of this thing. You can get yourself a pretty nice DPS there. I had a nice little peak of 172, and that's pretty consistent. So let me walk you step by step of how I got that. So, starting with my first tier stack item, it's going to be the Luminous Aether. And then my next tier stack item is, of course, the Nether Scar. So, Nether Scar's gimmick is that you have negative health regen, and you want one with as little negative health regen as possible. You can, of course, offset this with the HP regen tomes, but I try to make this build as cheap and easy as possible, so all the health regen should be within this build. To counteract it if it's close to 400. So, Luminous Aether can hit 163, and then the Greaves of the Veneer can hit around 260. So, both of those together counter the 400 from Nether Scar. And there's a bunch of buffs to Nether Scar. One is % health regen, which I'll get into later. The final two tier stack items, though, are the Flashfire set for some more health regen and defense, and then Recalcitrance. I don't like the health drop on Recalcitrance, but every time I try and not play with it, I do a little less damage, and I love the jump height during the Canyon Colossus to do parkour. The remaining items, it has to be Summa for points, but if you have a Guild Tome, you can switch this out for Photon, get some more thunder damage into the build. And then for the chest plate, I went with Rekkr. This can be anything, including anything new that comes out that gives health regen, or if you have enough moments to offset it, you can make this something else. But Rekkr does just such a good job, and I found this one on the market real cheap. So the reason that this build works so nicely is that Sunstar is very slow, and it gives itself a tier, so you only need about 4 tiers after that, and it's got that nice main attack damage on it. To go along with it, the stats end up being 115 for both the Sunstar, the Dexterity, and Absolution for defense. This gives your class a huge supportive role, using Absolution as an offhand weapon. Underneath Sunstar, trying to heal yourself is a kind of a losing battle. You'll have to cast Aura like 5 to 6 times to get yourself to max health. But while underneath something like Absolution, with its huge healing efficiency as opposed to negative healing efficiency, you can heal yourself and the whole team for about 8,000 per chunk, thanks to the health bonus and of course all this nice healing efficiency. There are those tomes from the Groot Slang that you can use that go right here, I believe, that promote healing efficiency. And dear God, do I want those, and I don't have them yet. But if you do, slap those puppies in right here, make this building more efficient. The last little toy for this build is Grand Design. This came straight out of the new Outer Void stuff, and it doesn't do too much damage. In fact, I'll kind of show it off now, but it's got one heck of a utility. So, it does benefit from the tier stacking that we did, so 100k DPS, not too bad, but its really cool utility is the Storm Dance. I'll get into the skill tree in a second, but underneath the Storm Dance, this will constantly just pull in enemies instead of you casting Aura to do it. Really great in raid rooms, I have found, and I'm sure you could use it in loot running as well. Let me get into the skill tree. So, there's nothing too crazy about this, but this is my personal preference. I like to go all the way down the Acolyte path to get my Blood Sorrow in, as well as, you know, like the good stuff, like the Blood Connection, as well as the Vengeful Totem. But the new stuff that came out in the most recent update is this, Sanguine Strike. So you reduce your main attack spread, and your main attack now does bleeding. And bleeding is a cool concept. It's supposed to kind of replace the Twisted Tether, which is kind of cool. The damage for me was the same, roughly, but it's kind of cool. But reducing the main attack spread is wicked helpful, because before, these 5 little bullets went everywhere, and now they're pretty condensed to the point where you don't have to be staring at someone point blank. Alongside the Acolyte tree, you do have Storm Dance because it's a ritualist, and then you grab the Rain Dance and the 2 masks. Mask of the Lunatic, and Mask of the Fanatic. I cannot see myself playing without this mask, and I highly recommend any Shaman do this. We are very squishy as a class. It's very frustrating at times. Then using this nice little defensive mask makes us take less damage than a warrior would, because they have no damage penalty. So this completely mitigates that, makes us into a very chunky boy with the Fanatic Mask and the defense of 115 and the healing. So you have all the defense, survivability to be a great Absol healer for your team, and the DPS from Sunstar, switching masks back and forth. So you have this dual utility with this class that I really like. The last thing I love about this build, and what I think makes it really special, is that in the recent update from, I believe, the end of November, early December, it made it so that way if you cast Uproot without holding Shift, it will not cast Blood Sorrow. You have to hold Shift to cast Blood Sorrow. And holding Shift and casting Blood Sorrow doesn't remove the mask. So if I just simply put myself under the totem and hold Shift, it'll cast the Uproot and leave my Lunatic Mask on, which is really nice. That way you don't have to try and plan ahead and pivot between masks anymore, because it used to just do both. So you get this nice damage number. Most of the time I find myself under the Fanatic Mask, and I kind of want to show off the DPS of that because I think it's still impressive to have all of the survivability and healing and be able to do a decent bit of damage, which is, I'd say, 110k DPS, which is really nice because you're taking way less damage underneath this totem, supporting your friends as well. So my usual game plan is, especially for the King Colossus, is I'll open up with something like the Lunatic Mask and I'll try and do as much damage as possible, but after the dagger comes out, or in any raid room where I feel like I'm in danger, I switch to the defensive mask, and sometimes I'll even switch to Absolution just to keep my teammates alive during like those high moments, like for the Groot slaying, when there's a lot of stuff coming out of the floor, or never mind, the Absolution's a fire weapon for that. But for the King Colossus, that dagger hurts a lot. And this also helps you go back for the big swing, because it's infinite flight, with a total cost of 0 and hull cost of 4. So no matter how much mana you spent, you could always run back. In the Canyon Colossus, something cool you could do is open up with the Lunatic Mask and then switch to the Fanatic Mask for 2 reasons. The one would be the dagger, to prevent you from taking a bunch of damage, like over and over again from the dagger, the shockwave, as well as ads, and the big man himself. But what you could also do is survive his big swing, which I don't think a lot of classes could do. The Fanatic Mask applies defense reduction at the end of calculations, just like how our attack buffs, like Mental Spirit or Fortitude, go at the end of calculations. So the big damage, it's like 20,000 damage you're supposed to take or something like that, becomes 1,300, which is really nice. And this is further exacerbated by the aspect, which I highly recommend you grab. I haven't gotten this thing to tier 3 yet, but already at tier 2, or even just tier 1, this thing is phenomenal, and it turns the 35% reduction in damage into a 40% reduction in damage. As for the other aspects, there isn't actually a lot to prioritize. Obviously, using the Mythic for the Blood Shaman is really good. We're only using 2 masks, so we can't really use the other one. But making the blood pool more efficient is always nice, but I wouldn't say this is mandatory at all. As well as like increasing the blood pool, kind of nice. Totem duration's great because you only got the 1 totem and you don't have a lot of mana regen, so casting at 1 is great. And of course, a totem area of effect, just to heal in a wider range. A lot of the others don't really help you because you're heavy meleeing. Maybe Aura traveling faster. I have to try that one out myself. The last really cool thing about this build is the % health regen. So, since Nether Scar reduces your health regen by 400, and then you go to mitigate it, you don't have a lot of health regen, at least raw, without some kind of HP totems or some really good rolls on these items. But what's cool is in Raid, if you get a buff that gives you health regen, it's going to be multiplied by that 200% roughly. In my case, my roll's alright. I got 179% health regen. So if I get the Canyon Colossus chest that gives 250 raw health regen, then I'm gonna get another roughly 500 health regen on top of that because of the % increase, which is really nice. So now I'll be healing almost 1,000 per tick. And then if you get the last chest, the giant 3, as if you don't get your heavy, the melee one, you could go super tanky and have like 3,000 health regen per tick, which is really cool. Moving you like this island and want to check it out for yourself, this is the Lost Grotto by Mothman. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think of the build in the comments down below. I'll leave the build down there as well. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time.